Now, there are plenty of fairy tales featuring wicked stepmothers. What usually happens is they're outsmarted and made to pay for their cruel treatment of their stepchildren. I think we can all appreciate some magical justice, right? But in this extremely upsetting case from the UK, events went way darker than Disney, and even more nightmarish than an old-fashioned fairy story. In fact, this may be one of the darkest cases we've ever covered on this channel, and that's saying a lot. Sadly, there's also no fairy godmother to make things all better, so be prepared for some really nasty details, okay? Are you ready? In mid-December of 2021, a female prisoner in the UK had to be isolated from the other prisoners for her own safety. The authorities realized she was at serious risk. The other inmates had added salt to her food and basically made it very clear that she wasn't safe in there with them. The British prison system gave her vulnerable prisoner status because what she'd done was so awful that she was at serious risk of getting attacked or worse. But what crime could have been so terrible that even other criminals in a prison would want to deliberately victimize her? Well, when you see and hear the horrific things that she and her partner got up to, I guarantee you won't feel even the slightest bit sorry for her current situation, especially not when you see who they hurt. Arthur Hughes was a kindergartner who loved the Gruffalo books, soccer, and superheroes. For the first 4 years of his life, everything seemed to be relatively normal, but his childhood was about to become violent and disturbing. In February 2019, his birth mother had been convicted of manslaughter for ending the life of her partner. So after that truly scary event, Arthur was sent to live with his birth father, Thomas Hughes. What his mom did obviously affected Arthur's mental health, and he often behaved really badly. He was kind of obsessed with the idea of his birth daddy leaving him, and also got fixated on all kinds of weapons. That sounds like a totally understandable, yet totally upsetting reaction to what happened, but he did seem to be slowly recovering from it. By March 2020, the social worker had noticed he calmed down a lot, and things seemed to be getting better for him. But when the UK closed down because of the virus in late March 2020, Arthur's life abruptly became a whole lot worse. Back in February 2019, Thomas Hughes had started dating a woman called Emma Tustin. You know, that nice, heavily isolated lady who we mentioned right at the start? Well, when the March 2020 lockdown began, Thomas and little Arthur all moved into Emma's place in Solihull, which is in the West Midlands of the UK. It's actually a pretty expansive area. Definitely not somewhere you'd expect something terrible to happen, and especially not to a sweetheart like Arthur. So, in March 2020, little Arthur's life got so much worse, and nobody could protect him. In April 2020, Arthur's grandma on his mom's side noticed a bad bruise on her grandson's shoulder. It made her worried enough that she called social services to try and get help for him. But Emma and Thomas used the time before the appointment to make their home life look, you know, like they were both normal people.
It was the one day that they allowed Arthur out to play in the back garden so that he was happy with his circumstances.
But after all the authorities had been fooled, the doors slammed completely shut on any visitors to the house. Emma and Thomas completely stopped Arthur's grandma or anyone else who might have cared to help him from seeing him.
They cut off contact from everyone. You know, and Arthur, you know, we loved him to bits. We never saw him again.
Arthur also never returned to school, even after the restrictions were lifted for a while. And then on June 16th, 2020, the ambulance services received this horrifying emergency call from Emma Tustin.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all like shit. He's threw himself on the floor. He's headbutting the floor. I'm trying to pick him up in the process. He's headbutting me in the process. He's breathing. He's barely breathing. He's lost just at the minute.
You hear how she's blaming a kindergarten for how he treats them? She doesn't sound worried about him at all. In fact, she's blaming him for everything. Because as you'll see, she refuses to accept the blame for this herself. And everything Emma said in the phone call to the ambulance was a massive pack of lies. Unfortunately, nobody would get there in time to save little Arthur. When Arthur had passed away from his injuries, the police immediately started questioning Emma Tustin and Thomas Hughes outside the house. You notice how Emma still tries to make a little kid sound like a villain?
He's banged himself with the radiator, he's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up.
He was actually really weak because of what they were doing to him. More on that later. But at least he fought back while he could.
Smashed this house to pieces, he's battered his dad. He's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me.
And of course, even if she couldn't visit, Arthur's grandmother had constantly tried to warn the authorities that something wasn't right. She couldn't believe it was happening.
They're wicked, evil. There's no word for them, especially your own child, who you've got a duty of care to protect.
And when police found his body, August 2020, Arthur had a bruise for every day of lockdown. So what the hell had they both been putting him through? Well, nobody was watching. I think you've got a pretty good idea now for just why inmates at Emma's prison were looking to attack her, or even end her life. And in my opinion, they were going really easy on her. The judge at the trial called her
woman who would tell any lie and shift the blame onto anyone to save her own skin.
Well, it didn't work. She was given 29 years. Thomas Hughes was handed 21 for manslaughter. And once she was in prison, the assault and threats started. But so far, I think Emma Tustin has had it really easy. In the case of Gabriel Fernandez, his own mother and his stepfather did the same thing. And now, Gabriel's mom is recovering from being set on fire by other inmates. So, what exactly PO'd the other inmates so much that they'd go after Emma? You've probably already figured out that what she and Thomas did to Arthur was completely disgusting. But how could they even justify treating him like that? Well, Emma Tustin totally resented having to look after Arthur, and he did have a lot of issues after what happened to his dad. Also, not gonna lie, the lockdowns in 2020 really didn't help anyone's mental health, right? But there is no way anyone even slightly normal could treat little Arthur with this much cruelty. And Arthur was now living with his own dad. Unfortunately, his dad had no intention at all to protect him. In fact, it became like a daily game to them. Emma and Thomas would each message each other all day about how awful they thought poor Arthur was. There's like no empathy or compassion at all in their messages. We've all joked on an IM before, right? But this banter was really malicious. One totally disturbing WhatsApp that Emma sent on May 23rd, 2020 read, "I don't think I can do this anymore. He shuts up as soon as you come through the door. He is malicious, cruel, and just generally awful." And in response, his dad threatened to really hurt him. Frankly, it's like they were encouraging each other to treat Arthur as badly as they could and enjoying it. This included barely feeding him or even letting him drink liquids. He had to stand in a hallway for up to 14 hours a day. Now, Emma and Thomas were using a camera to keep an eye on him. When this video was taken, Emma and Thomas were enjoying McDonald's ice cream and Happy Meals when Arthur was made to stand all day in a hallway wearing a fluffy onesie. I just can't believe that the people who were meant to protect and care for him even tape what they were doing and laugh about it. He didn't even have a bed. He had to just sleep in the living room or in a cupboard under the stairs when there were empty bedrooms just upstairs. I really have no idea how they thought any of this was okay. I don't understand how they could hear this voice and not even care, and it's super upsetting to me.
Yay! No one knows me! Yay! No one knows me!
Arthur felt like he was completely on his own. On this footage from the day he passed away, you can see that he's too weak to even lift up his bedclothes. A horrified family friend had tried to sneak him some water, and they couldn't believe how scared Arthur was, almost too afraid to accept any help. Even sicker, these two total monsters used to force feed him food heavily laced with salt. He never even had a chance, and by the time the authorities came back, it was all way too late. His dad, if you can even call him that, had sent Emma a message saying, "End him," and that seems to be exactly what she did. In Arthur's last few moments alive, he was much too weak to fight back. Not long after Emma hurt him, he passed away from an unsurvivable brain injury. Emma and Thomas had both denied everything, but would they get away with it? Now, these two total monsters were found guilty and sentenced. But if you thought the years were a little too light, you're not alone. There was a huge outcry from the British public and press. So, in what I'm pretty sure is a very rare thing, their sentence for their horrible crime is getting reviewed. I mean, Emma Tustin already won't be getting out for at least another 30 years. That's if she survives that long in prison anyway. Some people you just don't root for, you know? But with any luck, it'll be an even longer stretch for both of these monsters. Their local community and Arthur's grandma held a huge vigil for Arthur that took over the whole road as they released balloons. It shocked the country so much that they stopped soccer matches at 6 minutes to pay tribute to him. Because of all the attention, the government has promised that they're going to make some major changes so similar cases are handled. Like, how about making sure they stop things before it's too late? But honestly, we've heard this kind of promise before. But this time, I hope it works, because as lockdowns and other restrictions are lifted, I have a nasty feeling we'll hear about more and more disturbing cases like this. And while the chances of Emma Tustin making it out of prison in one piece are looking really slim, she still has a better chance than she ever gave poor Arthur. He really deserved so much more. So, fly high, Arthur. This reminds me all too much of the Teresa Balboa case. She was another totally evil stepmom. It's covered on the channel, and the story is just as crazy and horrifying as this one. But do you think there could have been any way to save little Arthur?